The dusty streets of Alta, Utah Territory seemed to shimmer with possibility on that scorching August morning in 1876, when Sophia Bennett first laid eyes on the cowboy who would change her life forever, though she did not yet know that the man adjusting his horse's saddle near the fairground entrance would become more precious to her than all the diamonds and rubies in her uncle's jewelry shop combined. Sophia had traveled from Denver with her uncle, master jeweler Harold Bennett, to display his finest creations at the annual territorial fair. The journey had taken nearly a week by stage, and the mountain air of Alta provided welcome relief from the summer heat that plagued the lower elevations. At 22 years old, Sophia possessed a keen eye for gemstones that rivaled even her uncle's expertise. She could identify the quality of a diamond with a single glance and knew the precise value of colored stones by their clarity and cut. Her uncle often joked that she had been born with a jeweler's loop instead of a rattle in her hand. The fairgrounds sprawled across a wide meadow on the edge of town, where white canvas tents billowed in the mountain breeze, and the scent of roasting corn mingled with livestock and pine. Sophia helped her uncle arrange their display in the merchant tent, carefully placing velvet-lined cases containing necklaces, brooches, rings, and ornate pocket watches. Each piece represented hours of meticulous craftsmanship, and Harold Bennett's reputation for quality had spread throughout the territory. "Mind the shop for a spell, would you, Sophia?" her uncle asked, adjusting his spectacles. "I need to speak with the fair organizers about security for the evening. These pieces are worth a small fortune." "Of course, Uncle Harold," Sophia replied, smoothing her sky-blue cotton dress. "Take your time." As her uncle departed, Sophia found herself gazing out at the bustling fair. Cowboys in dusty chaps mixed with farmers in overalls, while ladies in their finest dresses promenaded past booths, selling everything from hand-stitched quilts to patent medicines. Children darted between the crowds, their laughter rising above the general din of conversation and commerce. That was when she noticed him again, the tall cowboy from earlier. He stood near the livestock pens, one boot propped on the lower rail as he watched the penned cattle with an appraising eye. Even from a distance, Sophia could see he possessed the weathered bearing of someone who spent his life under open skies. His dark brown hat was pulled low, shading his face, but she caught glimpses of a strong jaw and sun-bronzed skin. He wore a faded red shirt, leather vest, and denims that had seen considerable wear. A bandana hung loose around his neck, and his boots were scuffed from what must have been countless miles in the saddle. A customer approached the jewelry display, an older woman seeking a gift for her daughter, and Sophia turned her attention to business. She showed the woman several delicate necklaces, explaining the quality of each stone and the craftsmanship involved. The woman eventually selected a lovely piece featuring a small sapphire surrounded by seed pearls, and Sophia carefully wrapped the purchase in brown paper, accepting payment with practiced efficiency. When she looked up again, the cowboy had moved closer, examining a booth that sold leather goods just 2 stalls down from theirs. Sophia found herself inexplicably curious about him. Most cowboys who passed through Alta were transient, moving cattle from summer to winter ranges or drifting from ranch to ranch in search of work. Something about this man's bearing suggested he was different, more rooted somehow, despite his obvious connection to the wandering life. The morning passed quickly as customers came and went. Sophia sold a pocket watch to a prosperous-looking gentleman and took orders for custom pieces from 2 different ladies who wanted rings designed for upcoming celebrations. Her uncle returned with reassurances about security and praised her for the morning sales. As noon approached, The heat grew more intense despite Alta's elevation, and Harold suggested Sophia take a break to explore the fair while he minded the booth. Grateful for the opportunity to stretch her legs, Sophia ventured into the crowd. She sampled fresh apple cider at one booth and admired a display of prize-winning preserves at another. A man with a trained dog performed tricks for delighted onlookers, and she paused to watch, charmed by the animal's intelligence. The fair represented the best of frontier community life, bringing together people from isolated ranches and distant mining camps for a few days of commerce and celebration. As she wandered past the livestock pens, Sophia heard a commotion. A young boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, had climbed onto the fence surrounding the cattle pen and lost his balance. He teetered dangerously, arms windmilling as he tried to catch himself. Before Sophia could even cry out in alarm, a figure moved with startling speed. The tall cowboy she had noticed earlier crossed the distance in 3 long strides and caught the boy just as he fell backward, setting him safely on the ground. "Easy there, partner," the cowboy said, his voice a warm baritone. "Those rails are slicker than they look. You all right?" The boy nodded, eyes wide with shock and gratitude. "Yes, sir. Thank you, mister. Best stay on solid ground unless you plan to make friends with those cattle," the cowboy advised with a gentle smile. "They are not much for conversation." The boy's mother rushed over, scooping her son into her arms while thanking the cowboy profusely. He waved off her gratitude with an easy humility that Sophia found striking. Most men would have played up such heroics, but he seemed almost embarrassed by the attention. As the mother and son departed, the cowboy turned and found himself face to face with Sophia. Up close, she could see his eyes were a remarkable shade of hazel, green and gold flecked with brown, set in a face that was younger than she had initially thought. He could not have been more than 25 or 26. His features were strong and regular, with a straight nose and a mouth that seemed naturally inclined toward smiling. A few days' growth of beard darkened his jaw, and his hair, what she could see beneath his hat, was a deep chestnut brown. "That was very quick thinking," Sophia said, surprising herself by speaking first. "You probably saved that boy from serious injury." The cowboy removed his hat, revealing more of his hair, slightly pressed down from the band. "Just happened to be in the right place, miss. Could not let the little fellow get hurt." "Still, it was admirable," Sophia insisted. She extended her hand in a gesture that was perhaps a bit forward but felt natural in the moment. "I am Sophia Bennett. My uncle and I have a jewelry display at the fair." He took her hand carefully, as though afraid his calloused palm might be too rough for her. His grip was firm but gentle, and Sophia felt an unexpected warmth spread from the point of contact. "Xander Quinn, miss. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I run cattle on a ranch about 15 miles north of here." "A rancher," Sophia said. "That must be challenging work." "It has its moments," Xander replied, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "But I cannot complain. The land is good and the cattle mostly cooperate." "Well, except during roundup, and then it is every man for himself." Sophia laughed, delighted by his understated humor. "Do you have a large operation?" "Modest," Xander said. "About 200 head, though I am hoping to expand next year if the market holds. I bought the land 4 years ago after saving every penny from ranch work since I was 16. It is not much compared to some of the big spreads, but it is mine." The pride in his voice was unmistakable, and Sophia found herself admiring his determination. Building a ranch from nothing required not just hard work but vision and perseverance. "That is quite an accomplishment. You must have worked very hard." "Hard work is all I know," Xander admitted, "but I do not mind it." There is something satisfying about building something with your own hands, making something out of raw land and stubborn cattle. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, and Sophia realized she did not want the conversation to end. Before she could think of another topic, Xander spoke again. "I noticed your uncle's jewelry display earlier," he said. "Those are mighty fine pieces. I was particularly struck by a bracelet with blue stones. Sapphires, I think?" "You have a good eye," Sophia said, pleased. "Yes, sapphires from Montana set in silver. My uncle designed it last spring. The stones are exceptional quality." "They are beautiful," Xander agreed. "Though I confess I know little about gemstones beyond what looks pretty. How did you come to work with your uncle?" Sophia found herself telling him about her childhood in Denver, how she had been fascinated by her uncle's work from an early age. After her parents died of influenza when she was 16, Harold had taken her in and taught her the jeweler's craft. She had a natural aptitude for it, and over the years had become an essential part of his business. "So you can actually identify different stones and their quality?" Xander asked, genuine interest in his voice. "Most of them, yes," Sophia confirmed. "Gemstones have unique properties. The way they refract light, their hardness, their crystal structure. Once you know what to look for, identification becomes second nature." "That is remarkable," Xander said. "I imagine it is like how I can read a cattle herd, knowing which animals are healthy and which might be developing problems just by watching how they move and graze." The comparison struck Sophia as apt. They each possessed specialized knowledge born from years of observation and practice. "Exactly like that," she said warmly. A bell rang across the fairgrounds, signaling the start of the afternoon competitions. Xander glanced toward the sound, then back at Sophia with what appeared to be reluctance. "I should check on the schedule for the roping competition," he said. "But I wonder, Miss Bennett, if you might have time later to show me more of your uncle's work. I am looking to purchase something, and I would value your expertise." Sophia felt her heart lift at the prospect of seeing him again. "I would be happy to help. We will be at our booth throughout the afternoon. Please stop by whenever it is convenient." "I will do that," Xander promised. He settled his hat back on his head and touched the brim in a gesture of farewell. "It has been a true pleasure meeting you, Miss Bennett. Please call me Sophia." "Only if you call me Xander," he replied with a smile that made her pulse quicken. She watched him walk toward the competition area, his long stride eating up the distance. Several other women also watched him pass. She noticed with a small twinge of something that might have been possessiveness. Sophia shook her head at her own foolishness. She had only just met the man, after all. Yet something about Xander Quinn drew her in a way she had never experienced before. When she returned to her uncle's booth, Harold gave her a knowing look. "You seem cheerful. Enjoy your walk." "Very much," Sophia replied, trying to keep her tone casual. "The fair is quite impressive this year." Her uncle said, not fooled for a moment. "And did your enjoyment have anything to do with a certain tall cowboy I saw you speaking with near the livestock pens?" Heat rose in Sophia's cheeks. "Uncle Harold, you are impossible." "I am observant," he corrected gently. "And I noticed the way that young man looked at you, like he had just discovered something rare and valuable." "We only spoke for a few minutes," Sophia protested, though she could not suppress a smile. "Sometimes a few minutes is all it takes," Harold said. "Your aunt and I knew within an hour of meeting that we would marry. Sometimes the heart recognizes its match faster than the mind can catch up." Sophia had heard the story of her aunt and uncle's courtship many times. They had met at a church social in St. Louis, and Harold had proposed within 3 months. They had enjoyed 32 years of happy marriage before her aunt passed away 2 years ago. Harold still wore his wedding ring and spoke of his late wife with tender affection. It was only a conversation, Sophia said, but even as she spoke, she wondered if that was entirely true. Something significant had passed between her and Xander, a connection that felt both exciting and somehow inevitable. The afternoon brought steady traffic to the jewelry booth. Sophia helped customers while keeping one eye on the fairgrounds, hoping to see Xander return. She heard the crowd cheering at the roping competition and wondered how he had fared. The sun began its descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and still he had not appeared. Sophia tried not to feel disappointed. Perhaps he had forgotten, or his interest in purchasing jewelry had been merely an excuse to end their conversation politely. But then, as the shadows grew long and vendors began lighting lanterns to illuminate their booths, Xander appeared. He looked slightly dusty, and Sophia noticed a new scuff on his vest, but he was smiling as he approached. "Miss Sophia," he greeted her, "I apologize for the delay. The competition ran longer than expected." "Please do not apologize," Sophia said, embarrassed by how pleased she felt to see him. "How did you fare?" "Third place," Xander replied with modest pride. "Not bad considering some of the competition. There were some mighty skilled ropers there today." "Congratulations," Sophia said warmly. "That is quite an achievement, thank you. Now, I was hoping you could help me with a purchase. I want to buy something special for my mother. Her birthday is next month, and she has always loved beautiful things, though we have never had much money for luxuries." Sophia's estimation of Xander rose even higher. A man who thought of his mother so considerately possessed a good heart. "I would be delighted to help. Does your mother have a preference for any particular type of jewelry?" "She loves necklaces," Xander said. "She used to have one with a red stone that her grandmother gave her, but it was lost years ago during a river crossing. She never complained about losing it, but I know she grieved for it." "A red stone," Sophia mused, moving to one of the display cases. "Perhaps a garnet or a ruby." She withdrew a velvet tray displaying several necklaces. "These garnets are from the Colorado Territory, deep red with excellent clarity. This setting is particularly nice. The silver filigree is my uncle's own design." Xander examined the necklace carefully, holding it up to catch the lamplight. The garnets gleamed like dark wine, each stone carefully matched for color and size. "It is beautiful," he said quietly. "She would love this." "The garnets symbolize devotion and friendship," Sophia offered. "They are traditional stones for expressing lasting affection." "That is fitting," Xander said. "My mother is the strongest, most devoted person I know. She raised 4 children mostly on her own after my father died when I was 12. She never remarried, poured everything into making sure we had opportunities she never did." Sophia felt a lump form in her throat at the love evident in his voice. "She sounds like a remarkable woman." "She is," Xander agreed. "My siblings and I owe her everything." He carefully returned the necklace to its case. "I will take it. What is the price?" Harold had been listening from his position at the other end of the booth, and he named a figure that was slightly lower than the necklace's actual value. Sophia caught her uncle's eye and understood. He had been moved by Xander's devotion to his mother. Xander did not balk at the price, though Sophia suspected it represented a significant portion of his available funds. He counted out bills and coins carefully, and Sophia wrapped the necklace in layers of soft cloth before placing it in a small wooden box. "Your mother is very fortunate to have such a thoughtful son," she said, handing him the package. "I am the fortunate one," Xander replied. "She believed in me when I said I wanted to own my own ranch. Everyone else thought I was dreaming too big, but she never doubted." As Xander prepared to leave, he hesitated, as though wrestling with a decision. Finally, he spoke. "Sophia, I know we only just met today, but I wonder if you might allow me to call on you this evening. There is going to be a dance in the town square at 8 o'clock. It would be my honor to escort you, if you are willing and your uncle approves." Sophia's breath caught. She wanted to say yes immediately, but propriety required her to consult her uncle. She glanced at Harold, who had moved closer. "I have no objection," Harold said with barely concealed amusement. "In fact, I encourage it. Sophia has been working very hard and she deserves an evening of enjoyment. You seem like a respectable young man, Mr. Quinn." "I assure you, sir, your niece would be perfectly safe in my company," Xander said earnestly. "I will have her back to your hotel by a reasonable hour." "Then I would be delighted to attend the dance with you," Sophia said, unable to keep the joy from her voice. "Wonderful," Xander said, his smile brilliant. "I will collect you at your hotel at 7:15. I believe you mentioned you are staying at the Mountain View." "Yes, that is correct," Sophia confirmed. "I will be ready." After Xander departed, promising to return in 3 hours, Sophia could barely contain her excitement. Harold chuckled at her obvious happiness as they began closing up the booth for the evening, securing the valuable pieces in the locked cases they would transport back to the hotel safe. "You like him," Harold observed. "This is more than just accepting a dance invitation." "Is it that obvious?" Sophia asked. "Only to someone who knows you well," her uncle assured her. "And I think he feels the same, the way he looked at you, Sophia. Like you were more precious than all the gemstones in this booth." Sophia helped carry the cases back to the Mountain View Hotel, a modest but respectable establishment on Alta's Main Street. The town was built in a valley surrounded by mountains, and the evening air carried a pleasant coolness. Once the jewelry was secured, Sophia hurried to her small room to prepare for the evening. She had packed only practical clothing for the trip, not anticipating any social occasions, but she had one dress that would serve. It was a deep green cotton with cream lace at the collar and cuffs, fitted at the waist and falling in soft folds to her ankles. She brushed out her chestnut hair, which fell in natural waves past her shoulders, and pinned it partially up, letting some curls frame her face. A small cameo brooch at her collar completed the outfit. When she descended to the hotel lobby just before the appointed time, her uncle smiled approvingly. "You look lovely, my dear, very much like your mother at that age." The compliment touched Sophia deeply. She had been told she resembled her mother, with the same green eyes and heart-shaped face, but hearing her uncle confirm it meant a great deal. Xander arrived precisely at 7:15, and Sophia was struck by his transformation. He had clearly bathed and shaved and wore clean trousers, a white shirt, and a dark vest. His boots had been polished and his hair was neatly combed. He looked handsome and respectable, though Sophia thought she had liked him equally well in his dusty work clothes. "You look beautiful," Xander said simply, his eyes conveying what his words understated. "Thank you," Sophia replied. "You look very handsome yourself." They walked the short distance to the town square where lanterns had been strung between posts, creating pools of golden light. A small group of musicians, fiddle, guitar, and accordion, had set up on a makeshift platform, and dozens of couples were already dancing. The scene possessed a magical quality, the mountain darkness held at bay by lantern light and the warmth of community gathering. Xander offered his arm, and Sophia took it, aware of the strength beneath the fabric of his shirt. As they entered the dancing area, the musicians struck up a lively reel. Xander proved to be a surprisingly good dancer, leading her through the steps with confidence. "Where did you learn to dance?" Sophia asked as they spun through a turn. "My mother insisted all her children learn," Xander explained. She said it was an important social skill. My brothers and I used to complain, but now I am grateful for her persistence. They danced several reels and a waltz, and Sophia found herself laughing more than she had in months. Xander was easy to be with, his conversation interesting and his manner attentive without being overbearing. When they took a break to get some punch, they stood at the edge of the square watching the other dancers. "Tell me more about your ranch," Sophia invited. "What made you choose this area? The land is good," Xander said thoughtfully. "Plenty of water from mountain streams, good grazing, and enough sheltered valleys to protect the cattle during winter storms. I knew the moment I saw it that this was where I wanted to build my future. The previous owner was getting too old to manage it and sold me the land for a fair price. I have been improving it bit by bit, building better fences, upgrading the barn, breeding for better stock." "It sounds like you have clear vision for what you want to achieve," Sophia observed. "I suppose I do," Xander agreed. "I grew up moving from ranch to ranch as my mother sought work. I wanted roots, a place that was mine where I could build something lasting." "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Sophia assured him. "I think everyone desires a place where they belong, where they can put down roots and grow." "What about you?" Xander asked. "Do you plan to always work with your uncle, or do you have other dreams?" It was a question few people had asked her, and Sophia took a moment to consider her answer. "I love working with gemstones and jewelry. There is something deeply satisfying about helping people find the perfect piece for a special moment in their lives. But I also sometimes dream of having my own shop someday, perhaps designing my own pieces rather than just helping to sell my uncle's work." "You should," Xander said with immediate conviction. "If you have the skill and the passion, you should absolutely pursue it. Life is too short to leave dreams unfulfilled." His support, offered so readily to someone he had only just met, moved Sophia. Many men would have suggested she should focus on finding a husband rather than building a business. Xander's attitude was refreshingly different. As the evening progressed, they danced more and talked between songs, discovering shared views on many topics. They both loved reading, though Xander admitted his selections were limited to whatever books he could acquire through the general store. They both valued honesty and hard work. They both felt deep loyalty to family. The more they talked, the more Sophia felt the connection between them strengthening. During a slow waltz, Xander held her a bit closer, and Sophia allowed it, enjoying the feeling of being in his arms. The music seemed to fade into the background, and she was acutely aware of his hand on her waist, the warmth of his body, the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. "I am very glad I came to the fair this year," Xander said quietly. "I almost did not. I have so much work at the ranch, and the entry fee for the roping competition was not insignificant, but something told me I should come." "I am glad you did too," Sophia admitted. "This has been one of the loveliest evenings I can remember." They danced until the musicians announced the final song of the night. As the last notes faded into the mountain air, Xander escorted Sophia back toward her hotel. The streets were quiet now, most of the fair-goers having returned to their homes or accommodations. At the hotel entrance, Xander paused. "Sophia, I realize we only met today, but I feel like I have known you much longer. Would you allow me to call on you again tomorrow? Perhaps we could have lunch together." "I would like that very much," Sophia said. "But I should tell you, my uncle and I are scheduled to leave Alta the day after tomorrow. We have a commitment in Salt Lake City." Disappointment flickered across Xander's face, but he quickly composed himself. "Then we should make the most of the time we have. Would noon tomorrow suit you? I could take you to lunch at the boarding house. Mrs. Carpenter serves the best chicken and dumplings in the territory." Noon would be perfect, Sophia agreed. Xander took her hand gently, raising it to his lips in a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and romantic. Until tomorrow, then. Good night, Sophia. Good night, Xander. Sophia floated up to her room, her heart singing. She knew she was falling for Xander Quinn, falling fast and hard in a way she had never experienced before. The rational part of her mind cautioned that this was happening too quickly, that she barely knew him. But her heart insisted that some connections transcended time and logic. The next morning, Sophia woke early, excitement making sleep impossible. She helped her uncle at the fair booth, but her mind kept drifting to the upcoming lunch with Xander. Harold noticed her distraction and teased her gently, clearly pleased to see her so happy. At 11:30, Sophia excused herself to freshen up. She changed into her blue dress again and checked her appearance in the small mirror at the hotel. When she descended to the lobby at noon, Xander was already waiting, hat in hand. "Right on time," he said approvingly. "Punctuality is a quality I admire." "My uncle taught me that respecting other people's time is a form of respect for them," Sophia replied. They walked to the boarding house, a large two-story building on the edge of town. Mrs. Carpenter, a round, cheerful woman in her 50s, greeted Xander like a favored nephew and showed them to a table near a window overlooking the mountains. "This young lady must be special, Xander," Mrs. Carpenter said with a knowing smile. "You have never brought anyone here for lunch before." "She is very special indeed," Xander replied, meeting Sophia's eyes with an intensity that made her pulse race. The chicken and dumplings lived up to Xander's praise, and they enjoyed a leisurely meal, continuing the conversations from the previous evening. Xander told her more about his ranch, describing the landscape with such vivid detail that Sophia could almost see it. She told him about Denver and her uncle's shop, about the satisfaction of helping a nervous young man select an engagement ring, or seeing a woman's face light up when she found the perfect necklace. After lunch, they walked through the town, Xander pointing out various landmarks and telling stories about Alta's history. The town had been founded by miners in the early 1870s, drawn by silver deposits in the surrounding mountains. While the mine still operated, Alta had evolved into a ranching and agricultural center as well. "The diversity makes the town more stable," Xander explained. "When silver prices drop, the ranches keep the economy going. It is a good place to build a life." They found themselves at the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open meadows. A small stream burbled past, and wildflowers dotted the grass in purple and yellow profusion. Without discussing it, they both sat on a large flat rock near the stream, enjoying the peaceful afternoon. "Sophia," Xander began, his tone serious, "I need to be honest with you about something. Last night and today have been some of the best hours of my life. Being with you feels right in a way I cannot fully explain, but I also know you are leaving tomorrow, and that tears at me." Sophia's heart clenched. She had been trying not to think about their impending separation, but Xander was right to bring it into the open. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "I have never connected with anyone the way I have with you. It feels like we have known each other for years rather than just a day." "What if we did not have to say goodbye?" Xander asked. "What if there was a way for us to continue to know each other, to see where this connection leads?" "I would want that more than anything," Sophia said. "But the distance is considerable. Denver is weeks away by stage, and neither of us can simply abandon our responsibilities to travel back and forth." "Letters," Xander suggested. "We could write to each other." "I know it is not the same as being together, but it would allow us to continue to share our lives, to learn more about each other. And perhaps, if things progress as I hope they might, We could find ways to visit. I would very much like to correspond with you, Sophia said, relief washing through her. She had been dreading a final goodbye, and the prospect of staying in contact, even by letter, was better than nothing. I promise to write regularly if you will do the same. You have my word, Xander said solemnly. I will write to you every week, more if I can manage it. They sat by the stream for another hour, reluctant to return to town and end their time together. They talked about everything and nothing, and Xander held her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. The simple touch sent shivers through Sophia, and she found herself imagining what it would be like to kiss him. As though reading her thoughts, Xander leaned closer. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. "I know it is forward and we have only just met, but I cannot bear the thought of you leaving tomorrow without knowing what it is like to kiss you." In answer, Sophia closed the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as they both gave in to the attraction that had been building since their first meeting. Xander's arms came around her, and Sophia leaned into his embrace, feeling safe and cherished and more alive than she had ever felt before. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing rapidly. Xander rested his forehead against hers. "You are more precious to me than any gem," he whispered. "More valuable than all the gold and silver in these mountains." I know that sounds dramatic for someone I only just met, but it is the truth. Tears pricked Sophia's eyes at the raw honesty in his voice. "You are precious to me too," she said. "More than I can adequately express." They reluctantly made their way back to town as the afternoon waned. At the hotel entrance, Xander embraced her again. "I will be at the fair tomorrow morning to see you off," he promised. "And I will write to you the moment you leave, so you will have a letter waiting when you reach Denver." "I will write to you as well," Sophia vowed. "The moment we reach Salt Lake City." That night, Sophia lay awake for hours, reliving every moment of the past 2 days. She felt changed somehow, as though meeting Xander had awakened something inside her she had not known was sleeping. The prospect of leaving Alta filled her with genuine grief, but the promise of correspondence gave her hope. Perhaps their connection was strong enough to survive the distance and time apart. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Sophia and her uncle packed their belongings and the remaining jewelry pieces, preparing for the stage that would depart at 10 o'clock. When they arrived at the fairgrounds to collect their display cases, Xander was already there, waiting beside his horse. "Good morning," he said, his eyes drinking in the sight of Sophia as though trying to memorize every detail. "I wanted to help you load your things onto the stage." Harold tactfully busied himself with other tasks, giving Sophia and Xander a few moments of privacy. Xander took both of Sophia's hands in his. "These have been the most important 2 days of my life," he said quietly. "Thank you for spending them with me." "The feeling is entirely mutual," Sophia assured him. "I will count the days until your first letter arrives." "It will be long," Xander warned with a slight smile. "I have a lot to say to you." The stage driver called out that they were preparing to depart. Xander helped load the jewelry cases and Sophia's trunk into the boot, then assisted her into the coach. Harold climbed in beside her, and through the window, Sophia maintained eye contact with Xander for as long as possible. As the stage pulled away, Xander raised his hand in farewell, standing in the dusty street until the coach rounded a bend and Alta disappeared from view. Sophia pressed her hand against the window, her heart heavy but also strangely full. "He is a good man," Harold observed gently, "and unless I am very much mistaken, you are in love with him." "Is it possible to fall in love in 2 days?" Sophia asked. "Is your heart engaged?" Harold countered. "Do you think about him constantly? Does the thought of him make you happy? Do you want to share your life with him? Yes to all of those, Sophia admitted. Then yes, it is possible, her uncle said. Love does not follow a schedule or a logical progression. When it is real, it simply is. The journey to Salt Lake City took 2 days, and Sophia spent much of the time composing her first letter to Xander in her mind. When they finally arrived and checked into their hotel, she immediately sat down to write. The words flowed easily, filling page after page with her thoughts and feelings. She told him about the journey, about her uncle's knowing observations, about how much she already missed him. She described the hotel and the city, but mostly she told him about the joy he had brought into her life. She posted the letter the next morning and began watching for his reply, though she knew it would take time for letters to travel between Utah and Denver. 10 days later, she and her uncle returned to Denver. The city felt familiar and comfortable, but also somehow less vibrant than it had before. Sophia threw herself into work at her uncle's shop, helping customers and working on new designs. But part of her mind was always on Xander, wondering what he was doing, hoping his first letter would arrive soon. It came on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered to the shop by the postal carrier. Sophia recognized Xander's handwriting on the envelope and clutched it to her chest, suddenly unable to breathe. Harold saw her reaction and smiled. "Go ahead and rate it, dear," he said. "I can manage the shop for a while." Sophia retreated to the small office at the back of the shop and carefully opened the envelope. True to his word, the letter was long, covering several sheets of paper in Xander's neat, slightly slanted handwriting. He wrote about his ranch and his daily routines, but he also wrote about his feelings, expressing himself with a directness that made her heart soar. "I have tried to put into words what meeting you meant to me," he wrote in one passage, "but language seems inadequate to the task. You walked into my life like dawn breaking over the mountains, bringing light and warmth to spaces I had not even realized were dark and cold. Every day since you left, I have found myself turning to speak to you, only to remember you are not here. The ranch seems emptier, though nothing physical has changed. You have become essential to my happiness in the space of 2 days, and I find myself planning my future with you in it, though I know it is presumptuous to do so without any formal understanding between us." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she read. She felt exactly the same way. Xander had become central to her thoughts and dreams with a speed that would have seemed impossible before it happened. She wrote back immediately, matching his honesty with her own. Over the following weeks and months, their correspondence became the focal point of both their lives. Letters flew back and forth, sometimes crossing each other in transit. They wrote about their daily lives, their hopes and dreams, their childhoods and families. Xander sent her pressed wildflowers from his ranch, and Sophia sent him a sketch she had made of a custom ring design. They discussed books they were reading and shared opinions on everything from politics to religion to whether apple pie was superior to cherry pie. As September gave way to October and then November, their letters grew increasingly romantic. Xander wrote about his love for her with a poet's soul, and Sophia found herself responding in kind. The physical distance between them felt like a constant ache, but the emotional intimacy they were building through their letters was profound. In mid-November, Xander's letter contained a proposal that made Sophia's hands shake as she read. "Sophia, my darling, I can no longer bear this separation. I want to see you, to hold you, to hear your voice rather than just reading your words on paper. I have saved money for a trip, and I want to come to Denver for Christmas. Would your uncle allow me to stay at a boarding house and call on you properly? I know it is a long journey for a short visit, but I need to see you. We need to discuss our future in person, because I can no longer imagine any future that does not include you." Sophia showed the letter to her uncle that evening. Harold read it carefully, then handed it back to her. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want him to come," Sophia said without hesitation. "I want to see him more than I have ever wanted anything." "But Uncle Harold, if he comes all this way, I think he is going to propose, and I know I will say yes. We have only spent 2 days in each other's physical company. Is that madness? You have also spent the last 3 months getting to know each other through letters," Harold pointed out. "I have seen those letters, Sophia. They are long and detailed and deeply personal. In many ways, you have gotten to know each other more thoroughly through this correspondence than many courting couples who see each other regularly, but never talk about anything of substance. So you do not think I am being foolish. I think you are following your heart, which is what your mother did when she married your father, and what I did when I married your aunt. None of us regretted it for a moment." Sophia wrote back immediately, telling Xander she would be overjoyed to see him at Christmas. She assured him that her uncle approved and that there were several respectable boarding houses near their home where he could stay. The next weeks passed in a blur of anticipation. Sophia found herself preparing for Xander's visit with an attention to detail that amused her uncle. She bought a new dress, a deep burgundy wool that complemented her coloring beautifully. She planned outings to show him Denver, places she thought he would enjoy. She could barely focus on work, counting down the days until his arrival. Xander's journey would take nearly 2 weeks, he had explained, accounting for weather and stage schedules. He planned to arrive on December 20th and stay until December 28th. 8 precious days together. Sophia lived for those days, dreaming about them at night and planning for them during the day. December 20th dawned cold and clear. The stage was due to arrive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Sophia was at the stage depot by 1:30, too nervous to wait at home. Harold had come with her, both for propriety and because he genuinely wanted to meet the young man who had captured his niece's heart. When the stage finally rolled up in a cloud of dust, Sophia's heart threatened to pound out of her chest. Passengers began to disembark, and then she saw him. Xander looked tired from the journey, his clothes dusty and his face showing signs of travel weariness, but his eyes lit up the moment he spotted her. He dropped his bag and crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, sweeping her into his arms. "Sophia," he breathed, holding her close. "God, I have missed you." "I have missed you too," she said, her face buried in his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him, leather and pine and something uniquely Xander. They finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying at the same time. Harold stepped forward and extended his hand. "Mr. Quinn, welcome to Denver. I am Harold Bennett." Xander shook his hand firmly. "Sir, thank you for allowing me to visit. I promise my intentions toward your niece are entirely honorable." "I had no doubt of that," Harold replied. "Now let us get you settled at the boarding house. You must be exhausted from your journey." They collected Xander's bags and made their way to Mrs. Ferguson's boarding house, where Harold had reserved a room for Xander. After he had washed and changed into fresh clothes, they all had dinner together at a nearby restaurant. Sophia could barely eat, too focused on the miracle of having Xander sitting across from her, real and solid and present. After dinner, Harold discreetly excused himself to visit a friend, giving the young couple time alone while still maintaining propriety by staying in the public restaurant. Xander reached across the table and took Sophia's hand. "You are even more beautiful than I remembered," he said. "I was afraid I had built you up in my mind into some impossible ideal, but the reality exceeds even my dreams." "I was afraid of the same thing," Sophia admitted. "Afraid that what we felt would somehow be less intense in person than on paper, But it is not. It is more. So much more, Xander agreed. He paused, seeming to gather courage. Sophia, I know I plan to wait a few days to court you properly and give us time to adjust to being together again. But I cannot wait. I have to know. He slid from his chair and knelt beside the table, heedless of the other diners who turned to watch. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple gold band set with a single, perfect diamond. Sophia Bennett, I love you with everything I am. I have loved you since the moment you laughed at my joke about cattle at the fair. I will love you until the day I die and beyond if the afterlife allows it. Would you do me the immense honor of becoming my wife? Sophia felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of pure joy. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, Xander, 1,000 times yes. I love you too with all my heart. Xander slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. He stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made the other diners applaud and cheer. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing. Where did you get this ring? Sophia asked, admiring the diamond. It is beautiful. I designed it and had it made by a jeweler in Salt Lake City, Xander explained. I wanted it to be perfect for you. The jeweler thought I was mad, describing in such detail what I wanted for a woman I had only spent 2 days with, but I knew exactly what you deserved. Sophia examined the ring more closely and gasped. Xander, this is a flawless diamond. Do you know how rare and expensive these are? I wanted the best for you, he said simply. You told me yourself that gemstones should match the occasion and the recipient. What gemstone could possibly match you except a flawless one? His words echoed in her mind, and she felt her heart expand with love. You are more precious to me than any gem, she said, echoing what he had told her by the stream in Alta. More precious than the rarest diamond, more valuable than any treasure. We are precious to each other, Xander said, and we will build a life together that will be the greatest treasure of all. The following days passed in a haze of happiness. Sophia showed Xander around Denver, taking him to her uncle's shop where he admired the jewelry and Harold's craftsmanship. She introduced him to friends and neighbors, all of whom welcomed him warmly. They attended a Christmas Eve service together, and Sophia felt a profound sense of rightness sitting beside Xander in the church, his hand warm around hers. On Christmas Day, they exchanged gifts. Sophia gave Xander a pocket watch that she and her uncle had designed specifically for him, engraving his initials on the case. Xander gave her a leather journal with her name embossed in gold, perfect for recording designs and ideas. But the greatest gift was simply being together. They talked for hours, continuing the conversations they had started in their letters. They went for long walks despite the cold weather, and Xander told her more about his ranch and his plans for expanding it. Sophia shared her dreams of perhaps opening her own jewelry shop someday, designing pieces under her own name. When we are married, you could do that, Xander said. Alta does not have a jeweler, and there are several towns within riding distance that do not either. You could establish yourself as the premier jeweler in that part of the territory. I would support you in every way. The casual way he included her dreams in their shared future moved Sophia deeply. Too many men would have expected their wives to give up professional ambitions upon marriage. Xander saw her skills and passions as assets to be nurtured, not obstacles to be overcome. On December 27th, the day before Xander was scheduled to leave, they had a serious conversation about logistics. They were in the parlor of Harold's house, chaperoned by her uncle who sat reading in the corner, present enough for propriety but distant enough to give them privacy. I want to marry you as soon as possible, Xander said, holding both her hands. But I also want to do this properly. I think we should wait until spring. Give me time to get the ranch in order and prepare a proper home for you. Would April be acceptable? That would give us 4 months to plan and prepare. April sounds perfect, Sophia agreed. It would give me time to prepare as well, to work with Uncle Harold on transitioning my duties and perhaps beginning to plan for a shop in Alta. Where do you want to hold the wedding? Xander asked. In Denver, where your friends and uncle are, or in Alta? My family would want to attend. What if we had it in Alta? Sophia suggested. Uncle Harold can certainly travel, and I do not have so many close friends here that it would be difficult to leave. Your family is there, and it would be the beginning of my new life in my new home. Are you certain? Xander asked. I want you to have the wedding you have always dreamed of. I am certain, Sophia assured him. My dream is to marry you. Everything else is just details. They agreed that Sophia and Harold would travel to Alta in mid-April. The wedding would be held on April 20th, giving Sophia time to meet Xander's family and make preparations. After the wedding, Sophia would remain in Alta as Xander's wife, beginning her new life on the ranch. The next morning, saying goodbye to Xander was one of the hardest things Sophia had ever done. She clung to him at the stage depot, not wanting to let go. It is only 4 months, Xander reminded her gently. We survived the last 3 months apart. We can survive 4 more, especially knowing what waits at the end. I know, Sophia said, wiping tears from her cheeks. But these last 8 days have been so wonderful. Going back to letters will be difficult. We will write every day, Xander promised. And before we know it, April will be here, and we will never have to be apart again. He kissed her one last time, a kiss full of promise and love, and then climbed into the stage. Sophia watched until the coach disappeared from view, then turned to her uncle with a watery smile. Come along, dear, Harold said kindly. Let us go home and start planning a wedding. The next 4 months were a whirlwind of activity. Sophia and Harold began closing down his jewelry business in Denver, selling off most of the inventory, and preparing to relocate temporarily to Alta for the wedding. Harold had decided he would stay in Alta for a few months after the wedding, helping Sophia establish her own shop before returning to Denver to officially retire. Sophia designed her own wedding ring, a simple gold band that would complement her engagement ring perfectly. She also began designing pieces specifically for her future shop, creating a portfolio of work that would showcase her skills to her new community. Letters continued to fly between Denver and Alta. Xander wrote about preparing the ranch house for her arrival, adding new furniture and making repairs. He told her about introducing the idea of her to his family, and their excitement about meeting her. His mother, he reported, had cried tears of joy when he showed her the garnet necklace and explained that Sophia had helped him select it. In early April, Sophia and Harold boarded the stage for Alta. The journey felt both endless and too short, Sophia's emotions oscillating between excitement and nervousness. She was about to meet Xander's family, about to begin a completely new life in a place where she knew almost no one. What if his family did not like her? What if she could not adjust to ranch life? What if her shop failed? But every time doubt crept in, she remembered Xander's love and support, and her fears subsided. They would face whatever challenges came together. They arrived in Alta on April 15th, 5 days before the wedding. Xander met them at the stage, and the reunion was everything Sophia had dreamed. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at once. "Welcome home," he said, and Sophia realized that Alta did feel like home because Xander was here. He had arranged for them to stay at the Mountain View Hotel again, and that evening his family came to meet Sophia. There was his mother, Caroline Quinn, a slender woman in her early 50s with kind hazel eyes like her son. His brothers, Matthew and Thomas, were 20 and 19 respectively, both tall and strapping young men with their mother's eyes and their father's dark hair. His sister, Emma, was 18, pretty and vivacious with curly brown hair and a ready smile. They all welcomed Sophia with genuine warmth, and Caroline hugged her tightly. "Thank you for making my son so happy," she said. "I have not seen him this joyful since he bought the ranch." The next few days were a blur of wedding preparations. The ceremony would be held at the small church in Alta, and the reception afterward at the community hall. Sophia had made her own wedding dress in Denver, a simple but elegant gown of ivory silk with lace sleeves. She had also made Xander a new shirt for the occasion, embroidering his initials on the cuff in thread so fine the stitches were almost invisible. On the morning of April 20th, Sophia woke with butterflies dancing in her stomach. She and Harold and Emma, who had volunteered to help, went to the church early to prepare. Emma helped Sophia dress, arranging her hair and positioning the simple veil. "You look beautiful," Emma said sincerely. "Xander is going to be speechless." "I hope so," Sophia replied with a nervous laugh. Harold appeared at the door of the small room where Sophia was preparing. "It is time, my dear," he said, offering his arm. "Are you ready to become Mrs. Quinn?" "I have been ready since the day I met him," Sophia replied. The church was full of people, the entire town having turned out for the wedding. But Sophia had eyes only for Xander, standing at the altar in his new shirt and his best suit, his face shining with love as she walked down the aisle. The ceremony was short and traditional, the minister speaking about the sacred covenant of marriage and the importance of love, respect, and commitment. When it came time for vows, Xander took her hands and spoke in a voice that carried through the church. "Sophia, I promise to love you and cherish you all the days of our lives. I promise to support your dreams and celebrate your achievements. I promise to be your partner in all things, in times of joy and times of sorrow. You are more precious to me than any treasure on earth, and I will spend my life proving myself worthy of your love." Sophia's turn came, and she spoke through happy tears. "Xander, I promise to love you faithfully and completely. I promise to build a life and a home with you, to face whatever comes with courage and grace. You have my heart, my devotion, and my deepest respect. You are more precious to me than any gem, and I will treasure you all my days." The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Xander kissed her with a tenderness that made the congregation sigh. As they walked back down the aisle as Mr. and Mrs. Quinn, Sophia felt as though her heart might burst with happiness. The reception was lively and joyful. Caroline had organized a feast with contributions from half the town, and there was music and dancing late into the evening. Sophia danced with Xander, with her uncle, with both of Xander's brothers, and even with several of the older ranchers who wanted to welcome the new bride properly. As the evening wound down, Xander pulled Sophia aside. "Ready to see your new home?" he asked. They said goodbye to the remaining guests and rode in Xander's wagon toward his ranch, now their ranch. The journey took about 45 minutes, climbing gradually into foothills dotted with pine and aspen. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, and Sophia thought she had never seen anything more beautiful. Finally, they crested a rise, and Xander pointed ahead. "There it is, our home." The ranch house was larger than Sophia had expected, a solid 2-story structure built of logs and stone. A wide porch wrapped around the front and smoke curled from the chimney. Outbuildings dotted the surrounding area, a barn, a chicken coop, and several storage sheds. The land rolled away in all directions, fenced pastures holding the dark shapes of cattle, and beyond that, forested mountains rising against the darkening sky. "It is beautiful," Sophia breathed. "Xander, it is absolutely beautiful." "Wait until you see inside," he said, helping her down from the wagon. "I have been working on it for weeks." He carried her over the threshold, a tradition she appreciated, and set her down gently in the main room. The interior was cozy and well-appointed, with a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture, and windows that would let in abundant light during the day. There was a dining area with a table large enough for a growing family, and a kitchen that was surprisingly modern, with a cast iron stove and plenty of workspace. "I know it is not fancy like Denver," Xander said, suddenly nervous, "but it is sturdy and comfortable, and there is room to grow." "It is perfect," Sophia assured him. "It is more than I could have hoped for." Xander showed her the upstairs, where there were 3 bedrooms. The master bedroom was lovely, with a large bed covered in a wedding ring quilt that Caroline had made as a wedding gift. Windows overlooked the ranch, and Sophia could imagine waking up to that view every morning. That night, as they lay together in their new bed, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she had been living in Denver with no thoughts of marriage, content with her work and her quiet life. Then she had met a cowboy at a fair, and everything had changed. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked, drawing her closer. "About how much my life has changed," Sophia replied. "About how happy I am, about how grateful I am that you came to the fair that day." "I am grateful too," Xander said. "Every single day I will be grateful for the twist of fate that brought you into my life." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the future stretching before them full of promise and possibility. The next months established the rhythm of their new life together. Xander worked the ranch with the help of 2 hired hands, rising before dawn and often working until after dark. Sophia quickly adapted to ranch life, learning to cook on the big stove, tending a vegetable garden, and helping with various ranch tasks when needed. But she also pursued her professional dreams. With Harold's help, she established a small jewelry shop in Alta, renting space in a building on the main street. She began slowly, taking commissions and repairing existing pieces, but word of her skills spread quickly. Soon, people were coming from neighboring towns to see her work, and her business grew steadily. Xander supported her completely, never complaining about the time she spent on her business. He understood that her jewelry work was not just a hobby but a calling, something that fed her soul the way ranching fed his. They established a pattern where Sophia worked in town several days a week while Xander managed the ranch, and they spent evenings and Sundays together, strengthening their bond and simply enjoying each other's company. That first summer, Caroline visited frequently, teaching Sophia ranch skills like preserving food, making soap, and managing chickens. Emma came often too, and she and Sophia developed a close friendship. Harold stayed until July before returning to Denver, satisfied that Sophia was happy and well established. In August, a year after they had first met, Xander and Sophia returned to the territorial fair in Alta. Walking through the fairgrounds hand in hand, married and deeply in love, they reminisced about that first meeting. "I knew that day," Xander said as they stopped near the spot where they had first spoken. "I knew when I saw you that my life was about to change. I just did not realize how completely or how much better it would become." "I felt it too," Sophia admitted. "This magnetic pull toward you. I tried to tell myself I was being foolish, that you cannot fall in love with someone you just met, but my heart knew better than my head." As autumn arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and turning the aspen groves to gold, Sophia realized she had missed her monthly courses twice. A visit to the doctor confirmed what she suspected. She was pregnant, the baby due sometime in April. She told Xander that evening over dinner, watching his face transform with joy and wonder. "A baby," he said, his voice awed. "We are going to be parents." "How do you feel about it?" Sophia asked, suddenly nervous. "Like the luckiest man alive," Xander replied. He came around the table and knelt beside her chair, placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for this gift, for our child, for the life we are building together." The pregnancy was not easy. Sophia suffered from morning sickness that lasted well into the afternoon, and the winter cold seemed to affect her more than it had the previous year. But Xander was attentive and supportive, taking on extra household tasks and insisting she rest whenever she felt tired. The hired hand stepped up to handle more of the ranch work, and Sophia gradually reduced her hours at the jewelry shop as her pregnancy progressed. In early April 1878, on a morning when the first wildflowers were beginning to bloom, Sophia went into labor. Caroline came to help, along with the local midwife, Mrs. Henderson. Xander paced the downstairs, anxious and worried, while the women worked upstairs. Labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 18 hours. There were moments when Sophia thought she could not endure another contraction, but Caroline held her hand and encouraged her, and Mrs. Henderson's calm competence reassured her. Finally, as dawn broke over the mountains, Sophia gave one final push, and a baby's cry filled the room. "It is a boy," Mrs. Henderson announced, placing the red-faced, squalling infant on Sophia's chest. "A healthy, strong boy." Sophia looked down at her son, overwhelmed with love so intense it was almost painful. He had a surprising amount of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn hazel like his father's. He was perfect, absolutely perfect. "Can Xander come up?" Sophia asked Caroline. "Of course," Caroline said, moving to the door. "Let me get him before he wears a groove in the floorboards." Xander bounded up the stairs and burst into the room, his face filled with hope and fear. When he saw Sophia holding the baby, both of them healthy and alive, he let out a sob of relief. "A son," Sophia said, smiling through her exhaustion. "We have a son, Xander." He crossed to the bed and looked down at the baby with tears streaming down his face. "He is beautiful," Xander whispered. "So beautiful. Can I hold him?" Sophia placed the baby carefully in Xander's arms, and he held his son with a tenderness that made her heart overflow. "Hello, little one," Xander said softly. "I am your father, and I promise you right now that I will do everything in my power to give you a good life, to teach you right from wrong, to show you what it means to be a good man." They named him Andrew Harold Quinn, after Sophia's father and her beloved uncle. Andrew was a content baby, sleeping well and nursing easily. Xander was a devoted father, helping with nighttime feedings and diaper changes without complaint. He would sit for hours with Andrew in his arms, talking to the baby about the ranch and the cattle and anything else that came to mind. As Andrew grew from infant to baby to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Xander expanded his herd and improved his breeding stock. Sophia's jewelry business became the most respected in the region, and she designed pieces that were sought after by wealthy clients throughout the territory. They were successful, happy, and deeply in love. When Andrew was 2 years old, Sophia found herself pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and in December 1880, she gave birth to a daughter they named Charlotte Emma Quinn, after Xander's mother's middle name and his sister. Charlotte had Sophia's green eyes and a head full of blonde curls, and she wrapped both her parents and her older brother around her tiny fingers from the moment she was born. The years passed in a blur of hard work and deep satisfaction. Andrew grew into a serious, thoughtful child who loved following his father around the ranch. Charlotte was sunny and energetic, always laughing and getting into mischief. In 1883, their family grew again with the birth of twin boys, Samuel and Jacob, who kept everyone on their toes with their coordinated schemes and boundless energy. Through it all, Sophia and Xander's love only deepened. They still made time for each other, stealing moments alone when they could, continuing the conversations that had begun so long ago at the fair. They supported each other's dreams and celebrated each other's successes. When Sophia's jewelry won a territorial award in 1884, Xander was as proud as if he had won it himself. When Xander's cattle took top prizes at the fair, Sophia celebrated with him, remembering how far they had both come since that day they first met. One evening in the summer of 1885, when they had been married for 7 years, Sophia and Xander sat on their porch watching the sunset. The children were asleep inside, worn out from a long day of play. The ranch was peaceful, cattle lowing softly in the distance, a breeze rustling through the pines. "You ever regret it?" Xander asked suddenly. "Leaving Denver, giving up the life you had there?" "Not for a single moment," Sophia replied without hesitation. "Xander, you and our children are the greatest treasure I could ever possess. You were right when you said I was more precious than any gem. But you are equally precious to me, more valuable than all the diamonds and sapphires in the world. This life we have built together, it is beyond anything I could have imagined for myself." "I feel the same," Xander said. "Sometimes I still cannot believe you said yes, that you were willing to take a chance on a cowboy with nothing but a small ranch and big dreams." "You had more than that," Sophia corrected. "You had integrity, ambition, kindness, and love. You had everything that truly matters. The ranch was just details." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. After a while, Xander spoke again. "You remember what you said to me at the fair that first day?" "I said many things," Sophia replied with a smile. "Which particular comment are you thinking of? You told me my quick thinking saving that boy was admirable." "That was the first thing you said to me. And I remember thinking that you saw me, really saw me, not just as a rough cowboy but as a person with value. That meant something." "I did see you," Sophia agreed. "I saw a man of courage and compassion, someone who helped without expecting recognition or reward. I saw someone I wanted to know better, and I was right. You have exceeded even those first impressions." As the night deepened, they remained on the porch, content in each other's company. Their lives had not been without challenges. There had been difficult seasons with harsh weather and disease affecting the cattle. There had been the worry of sick children and financial concerns during lean times. But through it all, their love had remained constant, a foundation that supported everything else. As the 1880s progressed, Alta grew and prospered, transitioning from rough mining town to established community. The territorial status would eventually give way to statehood. Xander and Sophia became pillars of the community, respected for their business acumen and valued for their kindness. They hosted gatherings at their ranch, bringing together neighbors for barn raisings and harvest celebrations. Sophia taught jewelry-making classes to young women in the town, passing on her skills to a new generation. Their children grew strong and capable. Andrew, at 11, was already helping manage aspects of the ranch, showing a natural aptitude for animal husbandry. Charlotte, at 9, displayed artistic talent that delighted Sophia, and she began teaching her daughter the jeweler's craft. The twins, at 6, were still more interested in playing than working, but they showed signs of the strong work ethic their parents modeled. In 1889, on their 10th wedding anniversary, Xander surprised Sophia with a trip back to Denver. It was the first time she had been back since leaving for her wedding. They stayed at a fine hotel and visited Harold, now fully retired and enjoying his golden years. He was delighted to see them and meet the grandchildren he had only known through letters and photographs. "You chose well, my dear," Harold told Sophia privately. "I can see how happy you are, how fulfilled. That is all I ever wanted for you." "I am happy beyond measure," Sophia assured him. "You were right, Uncle Harold. Sometimes the heart knows its match immediately, and all we can do is trust that knowledge and take the leap." On the train ride back to Alta, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey of the past 13 years. She had left Denver as a young woman uncertain of her future, and she was returning as a wife, mother, businesswoman, and integral part of her community. The life she had built with Xander was richer and more meaningful than anything she could have planned. The 1890s brought new challenges and new joys. A drought in 1891 tested the ranch's resources, but careful management and community support helped them weather the crisis. In 1893, an economic panic affected the entire nation, but their diversified income from both ranching and jewelry helped buffer the worst effects. Through each challenge, Xander and Sophia worked together, their partnership stronger than ever. As their children reached adolescence, Sophia and Xander found themselves having new conversations about the future. Andrew was interested in attending agricultural college to learn modern ranching techniques. Charlotte wanted to travel to Europe to study jewelry design from the masters there. The twins were still finding their paths, but they showed promise in various areas. We are supposed to help them find their own ways, even if those ways lead them far from home, Xander said one evening as they discussed Andrew's college ambitions. "But it is hard to imagine this place without them." "They will always come back," Sophia said with confidence. "We have given them roots and wings just as good parents should. They know they are loved and valued here. They will carry that with them wherever they go, and it will bring them home." In 1898, on a beautiful August day, Sophia and Xander attended the territorial fair in Alta, as they tried to do every year. Their children were with them, now ranging in age from 14 to 18. As they walked through the fairgrounds, Sophia squeezed Xander's hand. 22 years ago, I stood right over there and noticed a handsome cowboy for the first time," she said, pointing to a spot near the livestock pens. "Little did I know that cowboy would become my entire world." "I noticed you too," Xander confessed, "even before we spoke. You were wearing a blue dress, and you looked so elegant and out of place among all the ranch wives and farmers. I thought you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. I still think that. Even with gray in my hair and lines around my eyes," Sophia teased. She was 44 now, her youth behind her, but she felt beautiful when Xander looked at her. "Especially with those things," Xander said seriously. "They are evidence of a life well lived, of laughter and wisdom earned. You are more beautiful to me now than you were at 22, because now I know the depth of your character, the strength of your spirit, the capacity of your heart." They stopped walking, and Sophia turned to face her husband. "You are more precious to me than any gem," she said, repeating the words she had first spoken to him so many years ago. "More precious than the rarest diamond, more valuable than all the gold in the earth. You are my treasure, Xander Quinn. You always have been, and you always will be." "And you are mine," Xander replied, pulling her close despite the public setting. My most precious treasure, my greatest blessing. I thank God every day for that fair, for your uncle's decision to display his jewelry here, for whatever chain of events led you into my life. As the years continued to pass, their love became a legend in Alta, the story of the jeweler's niece and the cowboy who fell in love at the fair and built an extraordinary life together. Young couples looked to them as an example of what marriage could be at its best, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared dreams, and deep, abiding love. Andrew did go to agricultural college and returned to expand the ranch with new techniques. Charlotte studied jewelry design and took over Sophia's shop, eventually surpassing even her mother's reputation for exquisite work. The twins, Samuel and Jacob, became entrepreneurs, starting a freight business that connected Alta with larger cities. All of the children married and started families of their own, and Sophia and Xander found themselves blessed with grandchildren who filled their home with noise and laughter. As they entered their 60s, Xander and Sophia began to slow down, letting the younger generation take on more of the day-to-day responsibilities of running the ranch and the jewelry business. But they remained active and engaged, offering guidance when asked and enjoying the fruits of their decades of hard work. In the spring of 1910, they celebrated their 32nd wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a party that lasted late into the night. There was music and dancing, good food and better company, and Sophia and Xander held court like the beloved patriarch and matriarch they had become. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Andrew proposed a toast. "To my parents," he said, raising his glass, "who have shown us all what love looks like, what commitment means, what it is to build a life of meaning and purpose. Thank you for the example you have set, for the values you have instilled, for the love you have given not just to each other but to all of us. We are blessed beyond measure to be your children and grandchildren." Everyone echoed the toast, and Sophia felt tears of joy and gratitude streaming down her face. Xander put his arm around her and pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. That night, as they prepared for bed, Sophia stood at the window looking out over the ranch that had been their home for more than 3 decades. The moon was full, bathing the landscape in silver light, and she could see the familiar outlines of the barn and pastures, the mountains rising in the distance. "What a life we have had," she said softly. "What an incredible, beautiful, blessed life." Xander came to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We have been fortunate," he agreed. "But we have also worked hard, loved deeply, and chosen each other every day. That counts for something." "It counts for everything," Sophia corrected. She turned in his arms to face him. "I would do it all again, Xander. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I would choose you 1,000 times over." "As I would choose you," Xander said. "My precious gem, my priceless treasure. You have made my life more than I ever dreamed it could be." They stood together in the moonlight, two people who had started as strangers and become soulmates, who had built a legacy of love that would endure for generations. As they finally climbed into bed, still wrapped in each other's arms after 32 years of marriage, Sophia felt a profound sense of peace and completion. The story that had begun at a fair in Alta, Utah Territory in 1876, had grown into an epic spanning decades, encompassing children and grandchildren, success and challenges, laughter and tears. But at its heart, it remained simple. The story of a jeweler's niece and a cowboy who recognized in each other something more precious than any gem, and who built a life together based on that recognition. In the years that followed, Sophia and Xander continued to thrive. They watched their grandchildren grow and begin to have children of their own, making them great-grandparents. They celebrated as Alta officially became part of the new state of Utah. They marked 50 years of marriage with a party that brought together 3 generations of family and friends from throughout the region. On a warm evening in the summer of 1927, Sophia and Xander sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. They were in their 70s now, their bodies showing the inevitable effects of age, but their minds were sharp and their love as strong as ever. They had slowed considerably, their daily walks now measured in minutes rather than hours, but they still enjoyed each other's company and the beautiful land they had called home for half a century. "You know what I was thinking about today?" Sophia asked, her hand clasped in Xander's as it had been since that first dance. "What is that, my love?" "That first kiss by the stream," she said with a smile. "How nervous we both were, how it felt like the world stopped for just a moment." "I remember," Xander said. "I remember thinking that if I never accomplished anything else in my life, kissing you would be enough." "We accomplished rather more than that," Sophia said with satisfaction, gesturing to encompass the ranch, the distant lights of Alta, the life they had built. "We did," Xander agreed. "We built something that will last, Sophia. Not just the ranch or your jewelry legacy, but a family rooted in love and strong values. That will continue long after we are gone." "I know," Sophia said contentedly. "We have done well, you and I. We took a chance on love, on each other, and it was the best decision either of us ever made." As darkness fell and stars emerged in the vast western sky, they remained on the porch, comfortable in the silence that only comes from decades of companionship. Their journey together was approaching its natural end. Both of them knew that, but neither feared it. They had lived fully, loved completely, and created something beautiful that would endure. When they finally rose to go inside, Xander helped Sophia to her feet with the same careful courtesy he had shown her on their wedding night. They walked slowly into the house, arms around each other, their steps matched after 51 years of walking side by side. In the bedroom, they prepared for sleep with the practiced efficiency of long habit. As they settled into bed, Sophia nestled against Xander's chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong despite his age. "I love you," she said, as she had said every night for 51 years. "More than words can express, more than any gem could symbolize. You are my treasure, Xander Quinn." "And you are mine," he replied, his voice soft in the darkness. "Now and forever, Sophia. My precious gem, my beloved wife, my partner in all things. I love you beyond measure." They drifted off to sleep in each other's arms. Two souls who had found their perfect match at a fair more than half a century ago and had never let go. Their love story, which had begun with a chance meeting and a mutual recognition of something precious, had grown into a legacy that would inspire and guide their descendants for generations to come. The end came peacefully for both of them, first Xander in the winter of 1929, passing quietly in his sleep at the age of 78, and then Sophia the following spring at 75, as though she could not bear to be parted from him for long. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking their ranch, their headstones simple but elegant, designed by Charlotte and inscribed with the words that had defined their relationship, more precious than any gem. In the years and decades that followed, their story became part of Alta's history, told to new generations as an example of true love and partnership. The ranch continued to operate under their descendants' management, and Charlotte's jewelry shop became a thriving business that eventually expanded to several locations. Andrew's sons and daughters carried on the ranching tradition with the same integrity and innovation their grandfather had displayed. But more than the businesses or the property, Sophia and Xander's greatest legacy was the love they had shared and the example they had set. They had shown that love at first sight was real. That commitment required daily choice and effort. That partnership meant supporting each other's dreams, and that a life built on love and mutual respect was the greatest treasure anyone could possess. Their great-great-grandchildren would eventually walk through the same fairgrounds in Alta where Sophia and Xander had first met, though the fair had grown and modernized over the decades. And perhaps some of them, looking at the livestock pens or the merchant tents, would imagine a young jeweler's niece in a blue dress and a cowboy in dusty chaps, seeing each other for the first time and recognizing, with a certainty that transcended logic, that they had found something more precious than any gem.